feelings. And I think one of the values of doing this training, both when you do it with yourself and then later when you work with somebody else, is not so much that I'm teaching you a rule for this is the way you need to be, but like in meditation, once you start coming to develop the skill to be able to do it, then when you find yourself not doing it, you notice it, you're more sensitive to it, and it brings it into your awareness, and you can ask, now, why am I doing this? You know, why am I saying that? And I reflected on it later, and I realized when I said, oh, that's an important insight, I was like saying, you've done good work here, it's okay to stop, and so on, and I was helping to bring things to a close. Now, I didn't do that consciously or intentionally, it was just sort of a reflex. And then when I thought back about it, I had to sort of analyze it for a little bit, because I think that in watching people learn the process of reflective listening, either with themselves or with other people, there are many times when they slide off of that track and do something else, and it doesn't even occur to them. They hardly even realize that they're doing it. And then also, they don't necessarily notice the effect that it's having on the other person. This is something that I'd like you to become more sensitive about, where you can see that as you watch the speaker, your client, respond their next statement as a result of your reflective listening, that the quality of their response will tell you something about the kind of listening you were giving them just a moment before. Whether they have to find their place again, or whether they have to correct you or whatever. Like one time when I was listening to myself and I said, well, it sounds like you've been doing like this and so, and then I say, oh no, it's not like that, it was more like thus and such. If I say, oh, I'm sorry to have gotten it wrong, I'm pulling the attention off their process and focusing on me and the fact that I listened wrong for a second, and it pulls their attention away. Whereas when they say, no, it wasn't kind of like this, it was more like that, and you say, oh, okay, it was more kind of like that, right, and da-da-da-da. I'm just seamlessly going along with the person who's talking, and their attention never comes over to me as the listener. There's a lot of, I mean, I could not like list all the different ways in which the speaker's response will vary and show you some clues about how you've been listening. But as you get more into this, you will start seeing, you'll notice how the person either continues to dig and explore and find new meaning, or shifts the subject, or their energy shifts, or what have you, because of how you've responded to them. Okay. So, April, tell me, having done this dialoguing and listening with yourself, what's some observations or comments or reflections on the process so far?
Well, I've enjoyed it, and like I said earlier, in the beginning, I first started talking, it was more of a dialogue with myself. And then when I started writing it, I noticed the pattern. I was more reflective. It was like there was two of us instead of just me telling me what I should be doing. And I found, and with everything that's been so chaotic for me, I've been doing this actually at night after busy days. And it helps me to shift gears, to wind down. Right. Because I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I'm anxious
really,
at the same time. So
it helps you unwind somehow, huh? Get centered, get some of the static out or whatever, and come to center. I certainly find that for myself as doing that, and part of my curiosity is about how does it do this? I mean, how can just listening to yourself bring such peace? You know, you'd think that you'd have to straighten out some problems or come up with solutions or something, but it doesn't seem that way. You just listen and you unwind somehow, huh?
Well, for me, it's, you know, all day I'm listening to everybody else. And I'm going.
Right.
And by the time I get home, and this was my downtime to process it, and it's kind of validating all of the things that I've been feeling. And a lot of things that came up during this was I would end it by crying. It would be, you know, I'd be so scattered throughout the day, and then this brings me back. And I feel more centered, and it just validates all the feelings, the emotions, and
Wow.
everything that occurred during the day.
So to you watching the tape of me when I ending up crying, that's not a surprise to you because that's kind of, you recognize that or something?
Oh, yeah. I was, because it kind of confirmed what I was, because I was questioning, oh man, here I am just crying and crying and crying again. But it was, I related a lot with that.
Well, it seems like you're saying something along the lines of, when I find my feelings being validated, there's some kind of crying that expresses some. How does the crying come out of the sense of being validated? How come it's not, jumping for joy or something like that? This release. Do you have any insights into that? Because I found that very curious.
I don't know. It just, to me, the crying part of it is just, it's just the release, because I'm thinking that this isn't right. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be feeling this way, and I should be feeling like this, but I'm not. And the crying is just,
it's the letting go of the sense that it wasn't okay. It's going from not okay to okay, And so the crying is kind of letting go of that no, and saying okay,
And it's the crying is, like, I can't control that. And the crying is saying, all right, April, it's okay for you to feel this way. You don't have to pretend this or hold this back.
And you didn't have to tell yourself that it was okay. I take it there wasn't a voice saying, well, it's okay that you feel that way. So you weren't doing any instructing.
And when I was crying, that calmed me down.
Yeah.
And that has always been, I noticed that in my breathing. And when I and then I just calmed down, and that to me is validation that things are going okay.
Well, this is fascinating, because I was trying to, because this was a relatively new experience for me, see, so I'm trying to understand it. Why is this happening? I'm trying to understand what's going on for me, and I'm trying to reflect back and so on. And the image that came to me of this thing bursting, what bursting? A resistance to accepting a feeling was bursting. And now you're saying kind of the same thing, that all during the day you're having these various feelings about reacting to whatever's going on at the work situation. You say, oh no, you shouldn't be feeling that way. And there's this pent up no kind of a thing. And then when you're listening to yourself, that all unravels. And the crying is kind of like a tension release or something. Wow. So that makes it seem like it's really a good process.
Oh yeah. And it took a couple times for me to realize that it was okay. Like, I noticed, because at first I thought, okay, I'm ending this one crying. But then after a while I was like, all right, well, this is good, because I felt better.
Were you able, in crying, to listen to your crying and write down, I hear your tears right now, or whatever, is there any content there to be explored, or?
I kind of more or less ended it around that point. I wasn't sure to go on. At that point, all I could do was cry.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I want to go back to something else that you said right at the beginning, because you really got my curiosity up. You said that you changed modes, that you were doing it one kind of way, and then you shifted to another kind of way. And the word that you used was dialogue. And I don't know, could you demonstrate for me what you meant by this dialogue that you finally abandoned into something else?
Well, what I would, and I said this the last time, what I would be doing was, if something were to come up, something wouldn't feel right. No, April, maybe you should try to do this. But if I try to do that, then maybe this will happen. Well, think about this. And it was just kind of like...
playing two voices or two positions against each other?
Yeah, it was like one side of me was, the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And then the other side is what's actually going on. And I realized, I was just bucking heads.
Right.
But then when I switched modes and it was more reflective and more validation of my feelings.
Right. Like it sounds like what you're saying is that one mode is that there's two agendas happening. Each side of the dialogue has a particular perspective. One is, here's what's happening for me. Then the other has some standard of excellence. Well, you could have done this. You should. So it's pushing its point of view. Oh, but the way it really was is blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but you... And so it's a yeah, but,